Beyond the Pelvis is hosted by Dr. Keneal Siegel, a pelvic floor PT and intuitive healer, and Laura Haraka, a somatic practitioner and breathwork facilitator. Each week, we explore alternative and holistic approaches to healing chronic pelvic pain and other painful or chronic conditions. Join us and other experts in mind, body, and spiritual healing as we discuss a wealth of modalities ranging from ancient practices to modern therapies that challenge the conventional Western model of treatment. Let's get right to it.
Hello, welcome. So today's episode of Beyond the Pelvis, we are privileged to have Carrie Bennet. Carrie is one of the leading educators in the emerging field of quantum biology. She combines deep research and clear explanations of the complex quantum mechanisms at play in the human body to teach people how to use light, water, and nature to thrive. Carrie is a sought-after speaker and guest lecturer. She's also the lead faculty member and on the board of advisors for the Quantum Biology Collective and the world's premier certification for applied quantum biology in clinical practice. And we are so thrilled to have you. As we were just saying before we hit record, I've sort of become a little obsessed about light specifically. I feel like it starts at one thing and then it just snowballs into other things. So I've become obsessed with light for my own personal healing and journey earlier in the year, and that was how I was introduced to you. So I'm so excited to be speaking with you. This is like, I almost want to say a dream come true, but like I feel like I manifested this. It's like the person who gave me the information. Now I'm getting to speak to you. So it's just really exciting.
Oh, this is so exciting for me too. I love sharing this information, especially with people who are as enthusiastic as you both. So this is so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here today too. When Keneal introduced me to your work, I went out and got glasses and I got a red light bulb for my room. And it's so funny, my friends are now making fun of me, calling it the reptile cave. But I love it. For some reason, it's so soothing at night to go to my room with this red light.
And it's all red.
So I want to learn more about this. So we're so happy to have you here.
Oh, that's going to be fun to talk about. I can't wait. So I'm ready and willing and able and excited. So whenever you are.
Awesome. Can you start just by sharing briefly like how you got into all of this? Like where did it start for you?
Sure. I mean, as I think most people realize, there are no really traditional ways to get to this point. You know, there's no traditional educational pathways yet. And so what happened to me was I was a college athlete, always interested in the human body. I got an undergraduate degree in biology and decided I kind of had a breakdown because I was supposed to, having gone to a fairly prestigious liberal arts college, I was supposed to become a doctor or get my PhD, right? That was the expectations. And I remember going to my volleyball coach's office and saying like, no, I don't want to do either of those. I want to go to massage therapy school. And as those words came out of my mouth, it was like, who just said that? Because I had never had a massage before in my life. So, you know, and so I already saw back there, like, you know, kind of hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, I kind of know how I was guided to this point here, you know? And so fast forward, I'm a personal trainer, massage therapist, and I'm feeling great, doing great. Couple aches and pains that I kind of in my 20s was just like, oh, you know, I'm staying up too late, or everyone has insomnia, or everyone starts to get joint pain. You know, I kind of normalized it. And then my first child was born 13 years ago. And pain I experienced before got worse. The insomnia got worse. I got extreme chronic fatigue, and I couldn't eat one thing without being doubled over in pain. And that at that point in time, I was like, okay, so clearly I don't have all the tools in my toolbox that I need in order to support my own health. Meanwhile, clients were continuing to come to me. I had a little, like a wellness studio, if you will, and clients were coming to me with more and more complex conditions as well. And so I thought, well, this must be a sign that I am missing something major. And so I thought it was nutrition. And so I went to get my master's degree in clinical nutrition, which was a great program. I learned a lot and applied the perfect diet, the perfect 5R gut healing protocol. Didn't move the needle enough. And so then I started hearing the people say, well, you know, you're a mom now, you're getting older. This is just how it is, and you're going to have to deal with it. And I just had this nagging feeling that I was missing something so fundamental to human health. And so I would research and research and research. And I was up late one night scrolling on my phone, which again, I'm certain you'll hear why I don't want this. This is not a recommendation for people, but this was, a fortuitous moment for me because I found a blog post that was talking all about light and circadian rhythm. And me, I don't take anything at face value. So I was just like, oh my goodness, what is this? Why wasn't I taught about light and circadian rhythms? And so I dove down every research rabbit hole I could and started applying some strategies about syncing my circadian rhythm. And within days, like 3 days, I honestly felt better than I had in 13, like years and years and years. And so it was an aha moment for me. And as soon as I kind of went in that direction and saw the results that I was getting, I couldn't stop learning. So that took me into this concept of what's happening to the body at the scale of quote unquote the quantum level, which is below what we traditionally see as biochemistry, below supplementation, like what's happening at that very, very fine level of waves and energy in the body. And that's what applied quantum biology is. And that's how I got to this point by starting to study light and its implications and how it helped heal my body.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. I kept smiling, not in your suffering, but because my story is very similar, starting with everything sort of went crazy for me after I had, actually, I think before I even had children, it was like during the pregnancy, and things just got worse for me after each birth. So I'm wondering, maybe you can answer this. What is it about pregnancy and birth that causes these issues to come up?
Well, I think it's a major transition. I think the body is changing hormone status. The body is changing water volumes. The body is really diverting resources from mom to baby. And so it's like you're kind of put on the back burner. And so how well you went into the initial pregnancy with nutrients like minerals and nutrition and the hydration and movement and fascial adhesions and all these things kind of dictates then potentially what happens and how much we maybe feel different during pregnancy and after. And then afterwards, right afterwards, it's like, oh my goodness, when am I going to sleep again? Or, there's all those things as well. And so I think it really is this period of, if we go into it, as strong as we can, as nourished as we can, perhaps then as we're then facing the sleepless nights and the recovery from delivery or from a C-section, that we're better able to handle it. But I was ill-equipped. I was ill-equipped. I think I was undernourished going in. And I think that, the insomnia that I originally had just came out in droves. And interestingly, he also had insomnia, my firstborn. And there's two reasons now. He had insomnia. And then when he got a little older, he had OCD and anxiety that was very severe that I don't talk about really a ton, but I know exactly why. And now he's 13. He's like, I start to almost cry when I think about like how far he's come since from the anxiety that and OCD that he had the first, let's say, 6 years of his life that was just so debilitating to the extent that a psychiatrist said he would be medicated. It's like, he's going to be medicated his whole life. There's no chance that he'll do anything else will happen. And it was like, and then I'm like, I see a challenge, right? There's like, nope, we're going to go a different route. And so I'm so grateful that I have these tools that not only helped heal me, but my son as well. And so, that's a little bit of a segue into something, maybe a different topic, but these things I see kind of the environment that I was in when I gave birth and the environment that my son was in as he was, taking his first breaths and first steps and things like that. I recognize now that did not set him up for success in early childhood.
So you said there's tools. So I'm wondering if you can discuss some of the tools out there and how these actually help someone's body with insomnia, fatigue, hormones, things that are going on.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to understand that, we have to understand that not all light is created equal. This idea that my assumption for light was, do I have enough light in my environment to see what I need to do at any given hour of the day? And so that looked like, for a decade leading up to my first pregnancy, what that looked like was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, flipping on any lights I needed, to get myself ready to go to a gym, to teach a boot camp class under bright artificial lights, at 6 o'clock. And basically be under this artificially lit environment from when I woke up till through, early morning into the evening, putting on sunglasses to drive home. And then when I got home, same thing, just flip on lights because it's like I got to make myself dinner, I got to do the laundry, all the things that we do. And then I want to watch some TV, or be on my phone to wind down. And I realized that that was really, even though I could see around me, the signals that were coming from that type of a lighting exposure were very confusing to my body in terms of my body wanting to tell time. And so I already referred to this concept of circadian rhythm, which is this idea that we have a built-in clock in our brain that's designed to sense time of day and literally communicate that time of day to every cell in my body. My cells and organs use that information to say, oh, it's likely that Carrie will be encountering food. It's the morning. So let's divert more cellular energy, or let's tell the mitochondria in certain parts of Carrie's body to rev up energy production here. But, we're not going to go into a lot of repair right now. Let's save that for nighttime. So the body has this way of knowing which organs and which tasks it wants to accomplish based on the time of day, and also then a period of darkness at night. And it just so happens that my brain senses day through my eyes based on the amount of blue light that is present in my environment. I got these little tiny sensors in the backs of my eyes that are called melanopsin receptors, and they're literally capturing blue light photons, blue light energy. And there's a literal direct connection from the backs of my eyes to that clock in my brain. And blue light was the perfect wavelength of light to tell time, right? We've all seen light through a prism, and so there's a blue portion, and it turns out that that blue portion is the portion of light that at dawn, it's very low and gradually rises and rises and rises. You get more intensity and amounts of blue light until the sun reaches the high point in the sky, and then the blue light goes away slowly, slowly, slowly until there's no more after sunset, and then there's a period of darkness where it's completely gone. And so if I was to find something that was going to vary predictably from day in and day out in order to tell time, blue light would have been the perfect signal. And so we've got the sensors for that. And so what we now have, unfortunately, is a modern living environment that is blue light dominant. LED lights from bulbs, screens, so TV screens, the phone screens, tablets, computers, doesn't matter. They're all LED. And those LED bulbs have just a huge spike of blue. The blue is the most dominant frequency out of all the other colors that are there. The only time in nature when blue is dominant to the other colors is when the sun's at the high point in the sky at solar noon. So can you imagine what happens when I was waking up, looking at my cell phone first to be like, what time is it? Did anyone email me? Did any juicy gossip, right, that I need to find out? And so I was doing that, and then going into the bathroom, washing my face, brushing, doing all the regular stuff, then being in that lighting environment all day and all night, even as the sun sets and went down, living alone too. It's like, well, I want when I originally experienced insomnia, it's like living alone, I want to have all the lights on, right? I don't want it to be a dark environment because I want to feel safe. And so it was no wonder that my body was starting to kind of go into chaos, and it expressed itself as insomnia, inflammation, pain, those sorts of things. And so that's a typical, who knew any different until we were presented with this information? I didn't think anything of it. However, as soon as I started to dive into this concept of the changing blue telling time, helping my body know when to rev up energy and when to prepare for sleep, it made perfect sense. And so the strategies to help sync back up with this were simply, let's make sure we're minimizing that blue light in the morning hours before the sun rises. So for me, it really does. It looks like strategically placed bulbs around my house that I turn on that don't have any of that blue light. Now, listen, I'd love red, but husband and 3 kids are just like, Mom, we had reds. And Mom, we are the weirdest house on the neighborhood. I'm like, I know. I know. It's like people are wondering why it's red in here all the time. I'm like, I know. And so I found other bulbs that have more of an amber tone to them that don't have any blue. And so, we're still probably weird, but maybe just not that weird anymore. And so now we just have these bulbs that you can buy. There's companies that get this. So for example, Bon Charge is one of them. And I got a product guide if ever anyone's interested. I vetted a lot of these companies. And so that's on in the morning, early hours. If I need to look at a screen, I make the screen red, or, I have blue blockers. I've got my orange tone blue blockers, right? Yeah, that I can put on, because the orange prevents the blue light that's coming from even traditional bulbs from then coming into my eyes. And so the whole name of the game is, don't signal right first thing in the morning with your phone screen or your lighting that it's the middle of the afternoon. And so then as the sun comes up in the morning, I prioritize time being outside. I try to be outside at sunrise whenever possible. Sometimes it's driving my kids to school and there's like this bridge we cross over so you can see the eastern horizon, and I'll roll down the windows and I'll yell to my kids. It could be like 30 degrees. I was 33 degrees this morning and I was like, sunrise eyes. And they know to kind of like turn to the east and they're like, it's freezing, mom. Like, what are you doing? But like, you do what you can to get those signals. And so, I really have prioritized my mornings. I started taking client phone calls in the morning outside, or having a little workstation outside where it's like, okay, if I'm going to be checking my emails anyways, let me figure out a way that I can do this and still sync up with the natural light. So I really prioritize the morning, and we could talk about maybe why that is, but that's very important to signal that the day has started. And then conversely, on the other end of things, same thing, right? I'm telling my brain it's evening. So as the sky starts to dim, I'm very aware of having my quote unquote zero blue light bulbs on, my amber toned bulbs on. I will put my blue blockers on. We are a sports family, so we do watch things, let's say football at night, right? But we all, even my kids, all have orange tone blue blockers, and they actually ask for them now, because once you know the type of dim environment that your body is asking for in the evening, and then you're presented with like a modern television screen and how insanely bright it is, it's like, if we forget to, if it's like we turn the TV on and we forget to have our blue blockers on, the whole family goes, oh, it's like this visceral, like, oh, that's insane, right? And so that's what we do. It's seemingly too good to be true, but I've now been blessed to work with thousands of people who have repeated results when it comes to this, and simply syncing back up with the light signals makes a massive difference when it comes to optimizing health.
Thank you for sharing that. That was so complete. And, you had mentioned before when you first started doing this, it was like in 3 days or so, you started noticing a difference.
Yeah.
And people really do underestimate how something as simple as just like syncing up with the time of day can make such a big difference. Because I noticed the same thing for
Cool.
myself when I started doing it. And as I said, it started with lights. So I was outside as much as I possibly could during the daytime. And then at nighttime, we did become that weird family that had the red lights or the orange, like
Yeah.
the amber bulbs. But that's just how, I mean, we've even gone back to using candles, like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
natural lighting, So yeah, we do what we got to do. And it really is that simple, right? Like people don't understand that under these artificial lights, what it's signaling, is you explained so well, that it's daytime, the middle of the day, all day long, and it throws everything off in your body.
Sure.
Can you talk about some of those? You would discuss them as complex conditions, like what you had mentioned in yourself, it was insomnia. You mentioned fatigue, Laura. What are some of the ways in which this shows up if someone is not synced with the circadian
The simple answer is everything, right? But the
rhythm?
more complex answer to this is something along the lines of, your body is looking to tell time, like I said, and to rev up the different organs when they need it, and then to kind of pull back when they don't. And the things that are responsible to give energy to the organs are your mitochondria. And unfortunately, some people have mitochondria that are not as healthy as they could be. So they're not efficient at making the energy, and they're not efficient at receiving the signals. So people will actually express symptoms from this, what we call circadian rhythm dysfunction. People express symptoms in the organ systems where their mitochondria are already kind of compromised. So that's why it can be anywhere. But that's why literally there's hundreds of research articles, and you'll find a chunk of them dedicated to neurodegenerative neurodegenerative conditions, a chunk dedicated to diabetes, to cancer, to autoimmune conditions, to all sorts of cardiovascular challenges. So that it's, it's kind of, it sounds like a cop out to be like everything, but really this is the fundamental signal that every organ system relies on to know when to operate. And the mitochondria are relying on it to know when to make energy. And if they're not getting that message consistently, then of course things can start to break down. And it's compounded by the fact that if the body doesn't know when to sleep and to not only fall asleep, but to make melatonin, which people assume it's just to put us to sleep, but that's the first thing it does. The main thing that melatonin does is it repairs our tissues when we are asleep. And seeing that blue light after sunset suppresses melatonin by 80% or more, meaning we're not necessarily going to bed at a circadian appropriate time. And also, we're not making adequate melatonin in order to repair our tissues that are asking for it. So over time, this compounds to then be expressed as any of the things that I talked about. And these days, our environmental exposures are such that toxicities play a big role in impacting mitochondria as well. And so I see a constellation of things that may be something like insomnia, gut issues, which results in MCAS, and this healing journey, the kind of the journey that this person is on in order to help heal themselves. They've gone through so many ups and downs. There's nervous system dysregulation that then can impact. I mean, like you see this very complex constellation of different things. And it's if I was kind of in my old hat before I learned all this, I would be like, okay, let's address your gut health first and let's give you the best foods. And I still think that's important, but I don't want people eating processed foods, right? I don't want them downing glyphosate. But at the same time, no matter what someone's coming to me with, this is the fun part as a clinician. I address light first. Light is the very first thing. And then after we've addressed their light environment, they'll kind of see their symptoms shift and change and they'll start to get better. And little by little, we'll start to see, okay, now what's the next layer? I talk about water, I talk about mindset. There's, I kind of layer in a couple of key things so that by the time we get to week 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere in there, we're really at a tiny little symptom burden that then, do you need an herbal remedy? Do you need, something like an adaptogen of some sort to help support you through this? Fine, like that's great. But back in the day, I would have thrown probably 15 supplements on someone right off the bat, thinking that I was healing them. And in actuality, I think I was probably masking and not truly giving people support for the root cause.
So what you're saying is we can make small changes. We can put some red light bulbs or amber around our house. And trust me, my kids have already said to me, because they know that my room is red now, that, oh my God, Mom, when we come back for Christmas or Thanksgiving, is everything going to be red in the house?
Maybe. But Christmas is the easy time of year.
Right.
No one thinks anything of it when you have the red lights on at Christmas time.
So what we're saying is we can make small changes, going outside first thing in the morning, changing some of the light bulbs, wearing some glasses, maybe putting a red light on our phone and not checking it first thing in the morning. And it can help with chronic pain conditions.
Yes.
It can help with hormonal changes,
100%.
menopause, depression,
Yes.
things like
anxiety. Yes. Everything you named, I've seen completely reversed using these circadian light strategies. Now, there's the addition of making sure we're getting sunlight on the skin. There's the addition of potentially red light therapy for people. So there's what I would call additional tools. But what I described was the foundation. That has to be in place first before then we layer anything else on. And literally, I've had people email me, like after 3 days, after a week, all of a sudden I was bedridden, and now I'm finally starting to get back to work, or I thought my digestion was just going to be awful the rest of my life, and I can actually start to tolerate foods again. I mean, so it sounds too good to be true unless you try it and then the experience of it and you start to be like, wow, this is just a fundamental signal. Now, here's the thing too, because I love modalities that have a history to them. So I'm a huge fan if someone's working with an acupuncturist or an Ayurvedic practitioner, homeopathy, or, traditional herbalism and things like that. I'm a huge fan. But the but is that those practitioners were never taught anything about circadian rhythm, because in the times that those were developed, people had to have an intact circadian rhythm.
It
It's
was
like
natural.
there was no choice, right, but to live with the natural day-night cycles. And so it's not part of that pedagogy that, and it's something that I think our modern living environment has really brought to the forefront for me, that even people who are supporting themselves with those beautiful modalities that have this long history to them need to be mindful of their light environments.
Yeah, that's so interesting you brought that up because I have felt all of this just like deeply and intuitively. Like I always hated artificial lighting. I remember going to school and just be like, it just feels nasty in here. I
Yes.
just hated it. And I blamed it on the air, which I think is part of it too. The air is just circulated, and I'm just like,
Sure.
ew, this is disgusting. But the lights bothered me. And I just noticed even when I became a teacher, turning off the lights immediately changes the mood of the students.
Yes.
They were able to pay more attention. And I remember other teachers would be like, they're going to fall asleep. Actually, they're more awake. They
Exactly.
learn better because they don't have this bombardment of artificial lighting, and they're able to now actually focus because their anxieties were down. They were just able to focus better. And then I would play music and they loved it. It was just a nice time. And I started turning off the lights more. And then slowly other teachers would start to turn off the lights too. And we just noticed the difference. And you brought up that once you start getting into this cycle and this rhythm, that once you're in the artificial settings, that you're just like, whoa, this does, like, you really feel the difference of this doesn't feel right. And you can really tune into your body and go, wow, my heart is racing. Oh, I felt a little twinge of something just now because I'm in a bar, which I'm not normally in. And these lights are messing things up. So that's so interesting. And yeah, our ancestors didn't have to deal with this. So it's really just going back to basics.
Back to basics. And it's like, what is fundamental about what we've been exposed to over millennia, or however long you want to think of it, right? And it would be, I always would have been exposed to a period of daytime and a period of darkness. So it makes such perfect sense that I need to honor that rhythm. And how that rhythm changes seasonally. So if you live in seasonal variation, right, I would be expected to have more darkness in winter and then more daytime in summer. And in fact, it turns out that the body shifts and changes seasonally as well if you take advantage of it. And so again, it's just like, I don't know, it's like, it's not rocket science, but I had to describe it through the lens of quote unquote quantum biology for me to actually think that this was like a legitimate thing. It's just like, that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you bring that up because I was a teacher as well. And I never thought about that in my 20s. And when I had a chronic pain condition, I went to, oh my God, hundreds of doctors all across the United States. And when you're in pain and you're going to a doctor, your nervous system's completely dysregulated to begin with. You're nervous. And if you notice, you go into a doctor's office and the lights are glaring,
Yes.
which is not going to help your situation.
No. And the lights also, something that I don't want to bring fear, because I think the solution is turn off lights, right? If you don't like the lights, turn them off. If you can, go outside when you can. I mean, there's solutions to this that are simple. But the other thing about lights, especially for my clients with nervous system dysregulation, is that in order to conserve energy, they flicker and we can't perceive the flicker. Right? You'd have to take a slow motion video of it to see that your light bulbs are going on and off about 100 times a second.
Which I do when I
And
show people, and they're
I
like, oh my
know.
goodness.
I know. I give the story on some podcasts sometimes of like the first time I hated my Christmas tree was when we flipped from, because I used to love like the warmth of the lights and having all the other lights off in the house and just the glow of the Christmas tree. And then we switched to LED bulbs that year. And I'm like, why do I hate this Christmas tree? I want it off at all times. I love the smell of the pine needles, but don't turn the lights on. And then I started learning about this and I was like, oh my gosh. And I put my slow motion camera video on my Christmas tree and it was like, "Ah, rah, 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 rah." I was like, of course, this is why I hate my Christmas tree this year. So I took all the lights off and put all incandescent on. And I'm like,
Oh,
right, like this. So people don't realize that there is that going on in the background. And if you do have nervous system dysregulation, I liken it to like, how would you feel if you were in a strobe lit environment all the time? Right? Like, right? So, I mean, it's there. And so just be aware of it. And now we know there's bulbs, there's LED bulbs that are flicker free. There's still Edison style incandescent bulbs that do not flicker to that capacity or to cause harm to the nervous system. There's, like you said, candle light. There's campfire. Now, you don't need to light a campfire inside, but there's a reason why we're drawn to those things. And it's a lot of it is the warmth of the color, the low blue light, but also they don't do this to us. They're not flickering all the time and causing our nervous system to be on edge either.
This is such a prime example of times when technology is not always better, right? And we just take it for granted. Ooh, these new LED bulbs. I remember when they came out and we switched to them, and I remember just being like pissed, just angry all the time and be like, I hate these bulbs. Can we please go back to regular bulbs? But they didn't have them. And yeah, we started researching. And I remember talking with friends like, okay, we have to stockpile these old bulbs because I hate the new ones that they're selling in the stores now. I had a visceral response to it. Like, I just hated it. And I was just angry all the time. Now we are slowly replacing all of our bulbs in our home to be the flicker-free ones. And the ones that aren't, they just don't go on if we can avoid them.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, baby steps. I even tell clients, it can be as simple as, instead of transforming your whole house, one of the ways that we can really set the tone for nighttime and in the morning is having table lamps, strategically placed table lamps with one of so yeah, sometimes these bulbs do cost more, $15, $20 for a good quality bulb. But pick 2 lamps downstairs, maybe a lamp in your bedroom or where you feel like you need to be able to see to be safe, but light low. Campfire would have been down right on the floor. As the sun starts to go down in the sky, it's a signal that the day is ending. So instead of having overhead lights on, even if you just have a couple of table lamps here and there, and if you can get these flicker-free kind of warm toned bulbs, low blue light bulbs, then it really will also just set the tone simply due to the placement of where these lights are lower to the ground.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and clarifying. And that's come up on other podcasts. I'm thinking of like like Andrew Huberman, they've talked about that. And even like light therapy, they talk like the daytime light therapy, like having it low doesn't make sense. You need to have that high. So it's like just using nature and what we know and trying to mimic that as best as we can. Yeah,
fortunately, some of these larger podcasts are saying that you can get the same result from these light boxes, and you really can't. Yeah,
it feels different.
It feels, if right, if you've experienced what it feels like to be outside in those morning hours, it feels totally different than having to experience that signaling versus the signaling of a 10,000 lux light box on your desk. And so I tell people, even in winter, even if it's cloudy, you are still getting that 10,000 lux outside in your environment, in addition to all of the changing blue. That's the signal to sync up with the time of day. This one will stimulate dopamine and maybe make you feel more alert, but it's really no different than staring at that bright cell phone screen. Oh yeah, I got to be alert because it's the middle of the afternoon and I should be finding and hunting and gathering and all those things. So.
Yeah, I don't think anything replaces just going outside, nature. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Because since Keneal introduced me to you, I have been listening to some of your videos and things like that. And I started going outside, and it really helps you just start your day. There's something about it that helps you feel almost a little energized.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's science to this. Even cloudy days. Well, we're designed to get some energizing effects in the morning. So we're designed to actually have a cortisol surge. Cortisol gets a bad rep, right? Because it's like, oh, cortisol is the stress hormone, it's bad. But no. We want a natural surge of cortisol within the first couple hours of daylight because of the fact that that's the signal in the bloodstream. That cortisol in the bloodstream is the signal to all the cells. It's the chemical signal that daytime has started. And then we want that cortisol to drop off. And then as that sun gets a little higher in the sky, we actually start to convert neurotransmitters into their more active form. Things like serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine. These are brain chemicals that make us feel alert and make us feel focused and motivated. And we get this literally through light exposure through naked eyes. Now, I'm not saying contacts are bad. I've had people do this with contacts, but definitely no sunglasses, because that's going to block the signals that we need for the increasing light, for the ultraviolet light starting to appear, which is another signal. So, I mean, if I've had a lot of people who have done it, done this consistently enough, we call it like a morning walk. The language that I use, I'm certain you've heard this, is I call it a UVA rise walk. And if I get my clients to if they can schedule in time outside during that a UVA rise walk, clients will never give that up. There's something magical about kind of like that late morning walk. Not even late morning. We're talking maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. But it's magical for people because of all of the energizing effects it has on the brain. I call it like neurotransmitter power hour because of what it can do to help people focus and feel good.
That's the time that I walk my children to school. And even though it's like raining or it might be really like now it's getting colder, I know that's the only time for them because unfortunately they're in a building with artificial lights. That's when they're going to get their natural sunlight. And then, so most times I do walk them home from school as well. So they get that later on, late afternoon.
Great.
But yeah, that's the best I can do. So it's really just about using what you can because people are thinking, but I don't have this flexible schedule and I can't go outside and sit out in the sun and feel it on my skin. And now where we live in the Northern Hemisphere, it's winter is approaching.
Right.
So they're like, how do I do this?
What I am going to say is I've worked with all types of people, all types of occupations, whether you're a nurse or a doctor, whether you're a factory worker, whether you're a teacher, and we've made it work. You make it work by, instead of taking your lunch indoors, you sit in your car and you roll your window down enough in the middle of winter and you eat your food in the car and you get that natural light signaling. You prioritize the dim mornings and dim evenings. You take, like I said, I've had a lot of people who think they don't have a flexible schedule because they need to be quote unquote in front of their computer all the time. Yet I'm like, what phone calls are you taking in your office that you can take outside? Teachers who have the ability to, like you said, turn off the lights periodically. I have teachers who now are taking their kids out for a mid-morning break. These are elementary school. Mid-morning, it's literally a 15-minute runaround, which the kids obviously twist their arm to go outside. But the teacher then knows if she brings them back inside after it's a UVA rise for them, and then she brings them inside and keeps the lights off, any task she wants them to accomplish, like you were explaining, Keneal, is that it can happen, right? So it's one of those things where no matter what your occupation, it can work if you just know about it and you prioritize it when you can.
And even if you were bedbound, let's say, because I have a lot of clients that are in a lot of chronic pain that can't even get out of bed.
Yes.
And I've recommended they even just look out the window.
Yes.
Early in the morning.
Yes. 100%. The cool thing about this is we're talking about small exposures kind of leading to a cascading effect throughout the course of a day. And so in quantum physics, it's called nonlinear, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I got to do 20 minutes today, now 25 minutes tomorrow. You have to like keep adding on to get an effect like you would maybe to strengthen your muscles. And so this stimulus where you get the correct signals, it's just about consistency, that consistent 2 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes I've had people do here and here and here, and it makes all the difference in the world. And I would rather someone do that little 2 to 3 minute hits as many days a week as they can, as opposed to, well, on Saturdays, every other Saturday I can do 30 minutes in the morning. It just doesn't work that way. Like that's great. Don't get me wrong. I would love it if you prioritize that, but in conjunction with these little hits. So I talk to my clients. I say, okay, you can't get out of bed. Can you have someone help you position your bed closer to a window so that all you have to do is open the curtains? I've had clients open the curtains, and then I've had clients say, well, I can face my bed east. So I want to position my bed so that I can kind of at least maybe sit up in my bed and look east with the curtains. I'll have them then open their window if they can, if there's a screen or no screen, but have them open it if they can. And that has made a huge difference in just those little changes. So again, doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be, I need you to do a boot camp workout outside barefoot first thing in the morning, right? It doesn't have, if you want to, great, but it doesn't have to be like that in order to start seeing changes.
Absolutely. I even just recently moved my desk where I normally work from in front of my window. So the sun is constantly coming in on me and I can see outside. And I will tell you, when I'm at my desk, I feel much more energized and much more regulated now.
Yeah.
Just from moving my desk in front of a window.
I know. And here's something that's really cool is that I was just speaking with a researcher who researches light and mitochondria, so light and energy essentially in the body yesterday. And he was talking about research that's out there about placing plants. So like let's say the west side of the room. So you got the desk at the east and the west side of the room is a little darker. You place greenery there because green reflects a lot of the light, especially the beneficial wavelengths of light that the body needs. So essentially, you could amplify the beneficial sun energy in your space with a strategy like that.
That's so interesting. I love that because I love plants. And I think people are open to knowing the benefits of having plants even indoors. And during the pandemic, like everyone became a plant parent, right? But knowing
Right.
knowing that like plants can actually help you. And then I guess it's just recognizing that they do have a relationship with the sun as well. So why wouldn't it be that way that
Why
they're
wouldn't it?
working cohesively to help us? I don't know. I just love that.
It's the thing about plants, the relationship with plants that I love is they don't want to they don't need to get warm. You touch a plant leaf, right? And it's cold, even in the hot summer. And so you ask yourself, okay, so they must be reflecting the infrared. Infrared's another wavelength of light it's deficient. We don't have it in our incandescent bulbs anymore, and we don't have it coming through our window glass a lot anymore because of modern energy efficiency standards. But that infrared is something that we absorb to use energy for energy in the body. And so how cool is it that nature made it such that the plants don't need that? So we can sit around plants and be around greenery, and they take what they need, reflect back what they don't, and that becomes our energy as well.
So if I have this correct, the plants are reflecting infrared.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
I
Can we talk
know.
more about that? Because I know infrared and far infrared is so healing, and that ties into red light therapy, which is
Yes.
becoming more and more popular. What do you have to?
Sure. Yeah, so let's talk. So red. So we talked about blue and how blue tells time and how kind of modern living has made some chaos to that because of modern light bulbs. Red and infrared. And the infrared portion is a portion that we can't see. So we would never see it through the rainbow, but it's just on the upper portion of the red. And it turns out that sunlight contains 40 to 50% of its spectrum in this infrared spectrum. So it's a huge, huge amount of light coming from the sun. Some of it we feel as heat, such as like a far infrared sauna. Some of it we don't, which would be the near infrared light that you would see in a red light therapy panel. So we have a wide range of infrared. And like I said, modern window glass unfortunately blocks it. And that's to the detriment of our energy because our mitochondria use the red and the infrared to become more efficient energy producers. The water inside of our bodies, which we may not have time to talk about, which is okay. We'll have to come back. We'll have to like chat again, right? The water inside of us also actually preferentially absorbs infrared and stores it as usable energy for our body as well. And so makes sense that if we're now living in an infrared deficient lighting environment, then we're energy deficient and our mitochondria are not as efficient energy producers. And so the fact that the greenery reflects infrared back to us, I love nothing more than people who can have a place where they can open a window, allow all the light to come in, and then have greenery around them to reflect back the infrared to them. And I mean, can we talk about like a healing like
Right.
hospital room or something like that, right? Can you imagine like the bed right in front of the window, open, greenery around? It's like to me that just seems like that's a place that I would want to heal if I had to go to a hospital. And it's something that we can then mimic pretty simply by opening a window and strategically placed plants.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Can we just quickly, like briefly, what do we need to know about hydration? Like the basics.
Well, the basics is that water inside of our bodies behaves nothing like any of you were ever taught.
Yeah.
Right. How deep have you gone down the water rabbit hole yet?
I'm getting into it, but I'm happy that my water is filtered.
Yes, great.
That's as far as I know.
And that's as
That
far as I know too. My
Yeah.
whole entire house is
The whole
filtered,
thing. Yeah.
but I don't know much
great.
about water and how it affects us.
Well, that's fair. I mean, that's a beautiful first step, right? Because if we don't filter it, we become the filter ourselves. We want to keep the garbage that's in our water out of our bodies. So that's beautiful. Now, there's two things I always talk about when it comes to hydration: the water that we drink and the water that we make. the water that we make is in our mitochondria. And so I used to teach college courses, and I would put up the quintessential picture of a mitochondrion, which looks like a kidney bean, if you will, with a little squiggly line through the middle. And I would say, what is this? And then someone from some high school course would be like, that's a mitochondrion. What is it? It's the powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because it makes ATP, the energy currency of the cell. Kind of. Okay, kind of, because ATP is made in mitochondria. But what we found now is that ATP is not a high energy carrier like we once thought. We now know that the water inside of the cell holds energy. And this has now been studied for about 30 years, but a lot of research has overlooked water as almost being like the packing peanuts of the cell. It's there, but doesn't really serve a purpose except maybe to cushion things, or maybe so things can move easily through. And now we know that the water inside of the cell is structured in a way, it kind of organizes the water molecules in a way that gives the water an ability to donate energy to us. And guess what? I already alluded to what charges we can be depleted in this structured energy. I call it a water battery in our cells. We can be depleted of this water battery because modern lighting is deficient in the wavelength of light that keeps it charged. And that's infrared, right? So infrared keeps the water battery charged. It keeps our water battery full of usable energy for the cell to donate to all of its energetically demanding tasks. And so if we are designed to actually have a lot of our energy, our cellular energy coming from this intracellular water, and if we become deficient in it, we can't necessarily hydrate our way through it, because that water needs the added energy as well. It needs the infrared input in order to be maintained. So this is why I say, go outside, get that natural light onto your skin, or sit in the shade and let it reflect back to you, because we are absorbing that energy all the way through the deepest portions of our body to keep our water battery charged. So we have this water battery that's always trying to absorb light into to keep it charged. So that's beautiful, right? If we can actually start to then, I think it explains why the more northern cultures have a rich tradition in sauna, right? That's infrared energy, right? I think it's why we instinctively feel good around the infrared of a campfire. I even think it explains partially why other infrared producing or absorbing activities. So we would absorb infrared from hot water bathing or hot showers. We make our own infrared when we exercise. So I'm wondering if the common thread with all of these things is the infrared production in our bodies, or what we're absorbing to keep our water battery charged. So that's that, and so the name of the game there is, if you can expose yourself regularly to infrared, whether it's from the sun or a sauna or a hot bath, or even through exercise or a red light therapy panel, right? You're going to be doing something good to keep that water battery charged. And then secondarily, what we drink does matter. Like we said, we want it filtered, but what we drink really, step one, it hydrates our blood. Blood dehydration is a warning signal to the body, and we only have to be mildly dehydrated in the blood for the body to start to say, it turns on actually histamine as what's called a drought management pathway. It basically says, okay, we're not getting enough water in, so let's divert water to the most vital organs. Let's divert it to the brain, right? Let's divert it to the cardiovascular system, but other organs will suffer at the expense of that. And histamine is elevated. So histamine, I don't know if you see this in clinical practice, but histamine conditions are massive these days. So many people have histamine sensitivity or a full-blown MCAS, and I actually have seen people completely get rid of their histamine sensitivity with proper hydration strategies. And so there's something to be said about the blood volume being hydrated. Once the blood volume is hydrated, that hydration can leak through the capillaries and bathe the space around the cells, where we get the exchange of nutrients in, waste out. That space is a beautiful area that we need to have flowing, so that there's not like stagnation of the lymphatic system there. And so that's partially why we need to drink clean water. And I like to drink water that's been remineralized. The minerals just give the water a little bit of charge. It's not necessarily to enhance our mineral status a ton, but it gives the water a little bit of charge to make that water more bioavailable. We're more likely to pull it in. I don't know about you with the filtration, but I have had many clients who switch to, say, reverse osmosis, and it's a good thing, but they drink a lot and they pee a lot. And it's like, I don't feel like I'm holding on to water a ton. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And if you don't feel like you're holding on to that water, try putting a couple of like ocean-based minerals into it. And then you put those ocean-based minerals in, you'll notice that you're going to need to drink less and you'll absorb more, because those ocean-based minerals mimic essentially the mineral character of the blood, the hydration mineral character of the blood. So you're preferentially going to absorb that into the bloodstream and keep that beautifully hydrated.
It all goes back to nature.
Nature.
Again, we're back to like, what would nature do? That's our question we should ask. What would nature do?
Exactly.
And one of the things that you say to do is go outside, be with the natural sunlight. So I have a question for those of people that are listening that, oh, what about my skin?
Yes.
What do you feel about sunscreen?
No, thank you. Number one,
I agree.
it's most of it's just toxic chemicals, right? It really is.
Yes, it is.
Number two is this idea that this is kind of interesting to see this research. And I'm going to go into the short story on this because I think this is important for listeners to hear. When we were given the advice that ultraviolet light was harmful to us, people don't realize there was two camps of thought at the time. At that time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you had doctors running light therapy clinics on the Swiss Alps and in mountainous regions throughout Europe. These doctors, such as Auguste Rollier, were saying, oh my goodness, if you slowly and gradually shine natural sunlight on people, and at elevations like the Swiss Alps, we're talking a lot, that's ultraviolet intense light. Look at, if we slowly shine this light on people, they've cured over 120 different conditions. And so they were shouting from the rooftops like, sunlight is healing, sunlight is healing. Meanwhile, back in the States, you had researchers in laboratory settings taking cell cultures. So picture a petri dish with a layer of cells, and they were shining ultraviolet light from an artificial lamp onto it. And they were showing, oh, look at, there's some DNA damage, there's some inflammation. Then they were like, oh, ultraviolet light must be damaging. These heliotherapy clinics kept saying, no, it's not. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not. So then these researchers said, well, we'll improve it. We'll do animals. So the animals that they chose to kind of upgrade their research were hairless mice and hairless rats. These are nocturnal species who would never see ultraviolet light, right? If they were in a natural environment. And so they were taking these hairless nocturnal animals and again, shining this artificial ultraviolet light source on them. And they're saying, look, even in animals, it's creating damage and DNA mutations and the potential for cancer. And that's the group that won out, right? That's the group that got the funding to continue that line of research till the extent where you started to get the recommendation of sunglasses and sunscreen, talking like the 30s, 40s, 50s, that really started to boom there. And so now we're supposed to be afraid of sunlight. But if you actually look at some beautiful research that's done, these longitudinal or long-term studies that are done where they've looked at people who've had the most sunlight exposure over the course of decades, they're the least likely to get cancer, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune conditions. Even people who have diagnosed melanoma, those who got more sunlight, including sunburns with post-melanoma diagnoses, were the least likely to die. And so you have to ask yourself, were we just maybe looking at something and making some generalizations, but we really have a half truth out there? 100%. So now the research is actually like, well, they found this kind of conundrum. They were finding a huge boom in cancer in office workers. And they were like, well, these people aren't like they're like, these people aren't getting outside enough, and they don't have a history of the whole history of sunburns. Like, these people have been protecting their skin with sunscreen their whole lives. Like, why are they starting to be the group that's booming with melanoma? And it turns out that now they're studying a wavelength of light that's harmful called high energy visible light. They call it HEV or HEVIS. It's blue light. It's blue light outside of its natural spectrum. Any light that you pull outside of its natural spectrum, whether it's a UV arc lamp that you shine at a hairless mouse, or whether it's this blue light dominant environment, it has the potential to cause issues, right? And with sunlight, what I love is that sunlight always contains a balanced amount of the red and the near infrared and far infrared. That's what's in red light therapy. That's why you go to a dermatology office and they're like, use red light therapy to stimulate collagen, to heal your wrinkles, to protect your skin, to be anti-inflammatory, and so if you take advantage of all the wavelengths of light that the sun has to offer, and if you are aware of your sun signals. Sun signals look different in different people. A lot of it depends on how much you've exposed your skin to sun previously, what time of year it is, how much melanin you currently have in your skin, and what your unique sun signals are. So for some people, it's going to be a very quick pinkening. For other people, it's going to feel like a warmth, or they can tell that their blood has dilated to the surface and they're starting to feel like, okay, this is enough. Like they get that sensation of enough. And so if you slowly start to layer on the light onto your skin, you begin to soak up the sun's benefits. And as soon as your skin says, I've had enough through your sun signaling, and you go ahead and throw on a cover up or a hat and pull yourself into the shade, then you can easily soak in all of the beautiful benefits of sunlight without any concern that it's going to be harmful to you.
Thank you for clarifying that. In my family, we did a personal experiment of doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have more melanin than everyone
Sure,
else
sure.
in my family, so I was able to stay out for much longer. And the rest of my family members, they did it in little bursts. And once they stopped using sunscreen, like earlier in the year, they never got burned, like
I
the
know.
whole rest of the season. And I have not worn sunscreen in well over a year, and I don't plan on doing that because I don't need it.
I
I'm
know.
good.
That's the amazing thing. I used to be that person who's like, oh, I burn all the time. There's no chance that I'll ever be able to tolerate the sun. And that's not the case. I just never adapted like your family experience too. So it's so cool just to kind of hear stories. Thank you for sharing, because my experience, and I hear that all the time as well, that, oh my gosh, I was kind of misusing my exposures to the sun. The sun isn't inherently out to get me.
Ugh, thank you. Thank you.
So when people are listening right now, you've given such great information. I mean, water, light bulbs, sunlight. If they wanted to take away one thing today that you would say would be the biggest thing they can do to change, what would it be?
Brighter natural light exposures during the day. Go outside whenever you can. Keep it dimmer and darker at night to the best of your ability. And that's a beautiful start here to changing your relationship with light for the better.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I'm sure people are going to want to obsess over your content as much as we already do. So can you share where people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. They can find me. So I have a hub on Instagram where I really kind of put this out in supposedly bite-sized posts. I know I love the science, but that's Carrie B Wellness on Instagram. And then carriebwellness.com is my website where you can get courses for both the individuals and practitioners. They are pay what you choose. So feel free, do not hesitate to put in a very, very small amount there, because I want this information to just reach people. It's been too long. It took me decades, and I don't want it to take other people decades to get this information and start applying it to them and their families.
And then share the podcast as well.
So I've got a podcast with Sarah Kleiner called Quantum Conversations. She is another colleague of mine, a circadian colleague and friend. And we really what I love about Sarah is that we truly try to make this conversational and talk a little bit about the science, but really the practical application of so many. So we touched on light, but we'll talk about cold, we'll talk about red light therapy, we'll talk about seasonal local eating, and all these things that I think really go hand in hand. And so that is the Quantum Conversations podcast. We put a new episode out every Friday.
Thank you so much. You offer so many resources. Like that was all I needed for my own changes. And I just hope everyone dives into all the things you have to offer. I really appreciate you being here with us.
This was such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for having me. It's just been a pleasure chatting with you too.
Yeah, thank you so much for offering all this for our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to leave us a message or ask a question, please check the show notes with the link so you can reach us directly, or email us at beyondthepelvis@gmail.com.